thing if you can see it. So, but yeah, so I pretty much got started with doing these portraits on wood because a friend of mine from work had brought a portrait. She had brought in a picture. She wanted me to do a portrait of her grandsons, and I didn't want to do it. So I was trying to find something that would keep me interested in it. And I went to my favorite store that I miss dearly, Pat Catan's, and I came across this wood aisle where they have pieces of wood. I'll show you kind of what the kind of wood I'm working with right now. You can get this from Michael's. It is well, this is an Art Minds one, but they have different brands and different shapes and different kinds of wood you can do wood burning on. This is a smaller piece. And they have these finished things because I know nothing about how to make it look finished. So I buy these already put together. I saw it, and I saw like a little picture demonstration that they had next to it where people were doing they were burning flowers and animals into wood, and I was thinking, I wonder if I could do that with portraits. So that's kind of how I got started with it. What I do first is I take whatever picture people give me and I make copies of it, kind of like what you can see here. This is a copy. I go to the either Kinko's or the library or somewhere, make copies. I usually find the kind of wood that I want to work on, and I'll blow the picture up to be proportionate with the wood I want to use. Now, what you want to pay attention to is you want to pay attention to the grains in the wood because so this is particularly put together to burn to do wood burning with, but there are some other kinds of wood that may have, and pardon me if you see this cat sitting on the back of my chair, I knew she was going to cut up as soon as we got started. But I have some other examples here. So there's wood like this that I think that I'm trying to angle it so that the light doesn't glare too bad, but you want to pay attention to the grain and think about the picture that you're going to put on the wood, because if the grains are really thick, they actually have a kind of grease in them when you try to burn through it, and it's very difficult to burn through. So before you get started, make sure you get a good piece of wood that's smooth. For this piece that I'm working on tonight, it does have some flaws in it, but where the flaws aren't going to affect the portrait, so I still use it. Now for erasers, when you're dealing with wood, your eraser is sandpaper.
Oh.
So I know it's backwards to you guys, but this is 150 grit. The higher the number, the more fine the sandpaper will be. And so I usually like to get a couple of different grits because this finer grit I use to, as you begin to burn into wood, like I'm just going to show you with this tool here. As you can see, it makes a particular kind of mark on the wood. So as we do this for a little while, it puts a buildup on the bottom of this metal thing. So I just use the sandpaper to kind of rub it out so that I can get back to, it doesn't leave residue on the wood that I'm working on. So that's what I use the finer grit for. But the heavier grit, the more grainy this one is a 60 grit. So it's a more grainy piece of sandpaper. I use that to erase any mistakes that I make. Okay. All right. Well, so when I get started, as you can see, I've got transfer paper under here. So I usually use the kind that has the dark carbon And you put, of course, the shiny side down so that it'll make a mark. Let me see here. So that it'll, I don't know if you're able to see that it did make a mark on the screen. I mean, on
Oh
the
yeah, it
board there.
looks like a fingerprint or something.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll want to put it down so that when you trace this image onto there, you'll be able to see it. And it
Yeah.
makes almost like a pencil mark on the
Hmm.
wood. So sometimes you can erase it with an eraser, but most of the time I just take the little fine grit if it still shows up after I've burned it into the wood, and just clean up the details later. But I do start off with a generalized outline because I want to make sure that I've got the proportions right before I start burning. Um, you still do have to know how to draw to pull off, putting you know, a 3D image on a 2D piece of, wood, but this at least gets me to lock everything in where I want it to be. When I draw this on, or when I trace this on, I don't normally use like the tip of an ink pen or anything because I don't want to make additional marks on this because I still use this as a reference to go back to and compare what I'm drawing. Um, so actually what I'm using today is actually a paintbrush that has kind of a small tip at the end here that'll mimic like a pencil, or sometimes I may use just the pen cap, if I need a finer line, and just trace with that. So uh, as I mentioned before, I usually do start with the eyes because I want to lock in, the shapes of that first so that I'm making sure I get everything in there where I want it to be. Sometimes I may even lock in where the darker areas are. Um, Sometimes I use shapes more so than anything to outline where at least my darkest areas are so that I know where I am in the drawing. But it's been a little while since I've done this, so I'm just finding my way back to the groove, so to speak. Uh, and sometimes you have to be careful to make sure that you're pressing down hard enough to get to get through this piece of paper as well as the carbon paper. Otherwise, you will have traced for a minute and come to find out that your lines are too light or just not dark enough to see. And then trying to line it back up again can be tricky. Sometimes I just do enough to leave myself enough breadcrumbs so that I know, where I am in the drawing.
How long have you been doing the wood burning?
Well, I have been doing this since the late 90s. I want to say it was like 98 or 99 when I did the first wood burning. Um, and that was actually I tested out the process on I think I tried doing like a giraffe or something, or a gazelle, or it was some kind of animal, because I just wanted to see, how the process worked. Because so basically, also to let you know, these are soldering irons. Um, so I also got from Packetans back in the day, but they sell them at Michael's. They sell them online as well, and they sell them with different tips. So I don't know if you can see this one. Let me try to see. Okay, you might be able to see it there. This one is a flat tip, and it makes a nice, smooth uh, type of shading. Um, there are also other tips that are sharper, some that have a flat edge that give you a nice dark, they give you a much darker, deeper burn. Um, because you're gonna basically treat this like it is a black and white drawing, um, even though it comes out sepia tone, pretty much. But yeah, since the 90s, late 90s, and then when I well, once they saw that I did Miss Ruby's Grandsons, and it just so happened that the wood was what caught my eye. Because I got a piece of wood that still had the bark on the sides. Because they sell different kinds of wood. Um, so some of it does have the bark still on the side, so it looked really cool. And everybody was just like, wow, okay, you got to do my kids. And so, I remember, I'm sorry, I don't remember who said that earlier, that when you were in college you paid for your books with doing portraits. Well, i was charging like I was only charging like between $35 and $50 to do one of these on wood. And because I was just trying to perfect the process. I just wanted to make sure that I had it down. So I didn't want to, I felt like I was still new at it. And it got to a point where I had done so many of them. And some of my artist friends had to pull me to the side and go, okay, you are not charging enough money for this. So pricing, I had to start thinking about pricing the better that I got at it. And so, yeah, there were a lot of my coworkers that got the benefit of um, getting a portrait done without necessarily paying a real price for it. So,
So they got a blue light special.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. I was
Oh,
basically charging the cost of the material, like maybe $20 more. Yeah, So yeah, I'm thankful to some of my artist friends who did pull me to the side, though. Okay, yeah, I can see that good enough. I'm thankful to them for pulling me to the side though and getting me together about that, because there comes a point where you start to do enough of these, and I'm just trying to find a good spot to set this where I can still come back to it and reference it and still have you be able to see everything. Okay, you guys can still see me. Okay. So I'm gonna pull
yes.
this around a little bit because you may not be able to see the light, the very light way that it's shown up. Are you able to see it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, it does look very light and faint, but it's enough for me to see where I'm going.
Yeah.
Um, and so now, okay. Oh, as you can see over here, I kept the color copy of it up so that I can also reference that as well. Um, as I'm looking at it and drawing it at the same time. Okay. So I'm going to grab a little bit of sandpaper. What did I do with it? What did I do with it? Okay. Over here. Okay. So I have to apologize in advance for these scissors. For those of you that might do crafting and know that these are like some special kind of scissors, and I'm using it for common things. I know that it ticks some people off, Well, it's what I have available, and that's how we're rolling right now. Okay.
For your scissors, you do what you want with them.
Right.
They're not my scissors. What you
Right.
want.
All right. So I'm going to start off with, I don't know if you can see
Move it
this.
slower. Move it slower.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So this is not a completely pointy tip, but I usually use this for outlining the basics. Um, and I start with the sandpaper just to make sure I'm not getting residue from the burn parts on here. Because I've managed to use these soldering irons for more than just wood burning. I also garden. So when I well, when I started gardening, when I first moved into the house back in 2020, I actually used the totes that I moved in with as garden beds. So I use these to burn a hole in the bottom of the plastic totes so that the water would
Oh,
drain out.
that's smart.
You're
And
getting
it
your
didn't
use
crack
out of
them. You just got a hole. That's great.
it.
Yeah, some of them had already started to get holes in them, so they already had a certain amount of drainage going. Um, so yeah, I usually use this to try to get the eyes and the darker areas in place first.
That's amazing how the one eye you did already, I mean, it's bringing the face to life.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna once I get to a little bit of shading, I'll use the flat part for to start shading it. Um, it looks like I didn't realize when I until I went to copy some of these that uh I didn't realize that it was just a
Hi,
little bit blurry,
Paul.
but
Hey, I'm good. How's everything going?
Is someone on the
right.
phone?
Oh, I'm liking this being the host. You can mute whoever you want. Ooh.
Right. Exactly.
This little mouse, he has the power.
I was a little concerned because it seems like every time I get onto a Zoom or onto a Zoom meeting, it seems like somebody always tries to call me. And, I'm like, okay, so I'm kind of glad that we have the two setup here, the two-part setup where you're seeing the computer for the most part and not the phone. Um, I'm just laying a few things in here and there so that I can find my way back to dig it out later. Let me help bring you guys in with me a little bit so you can see how it's starting to come up. So I hope you're able to see that because I should be looking at the
Yeah,
phone.
that's a great view. That's
Yep, that looks
a good
good.
view. Danielle, do you do animals too? Pet portraits? Did you mention
Oh
anything
yeah,
about that?
yeah. I got over on those for a little while also because back in the day I had some friends that didn't have kids yet, and and my one friend Dave had he had dogs, so he had Cane Corso Mastiffs, and he had me do all the dogs. And then when he had a kid, he didn't have me do the kid. I'm like, Dave, are you serious? You're gonna have all the dogs done but no kid? He was like, oh, I'm just trying to get a good picture of him. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? You know, when the kid grows up and sees that you did all the dogs, but you didn't do him, how you think that's gonna go? Yeah, I'm supposed to be working on a portrait of my cousins. So one year for Christmas, I gave my cousins I was kind of broke, so I gave them the gift of a portrait, you know, where I had just kind of snatched some pictures of them that I had taken when they had come to town. And their kid was only like 9 months old at the time. And I had gotten enough good pictures that I could kind of piece them together. Because when I do more than one, you know what? I actually think I might have that handy where I can actually show you that piece of it. Because I messed up Todd. So I haven't come back to this because I messed him up a little bit. But so the youngest kid sees the picture of when I did
Wow,
the
that's
older
really
kid.
nice.
Yeah, this doesn't quite look like Todd though. So I just I felt like I couldn't really go with that. I think I nailed my cousin and the boys and the dog, but that doesn't quite look like Todd. So I'm still trying to work that out. But what I normally do, well, I thought I had this chart that I worked on, you know, to get them together. But because what I have to do is take the photographs and play with them on the copy machine so that I can make the heads look like they all belong in the same space. Because, you know, when you take some pictures, they, you know, the heads are going to be smaller and then some of them, the heads are bigger. So you got to play around with it, copy magic style, and kind of, you know, get all of them to look like they fit on the same page. I like to do that work ahead of time because, you know, I don't want to guess by the time I get to the wood. I like to, you know, pretty much put that together before I get to the wood part. And and then when I'm drawing, no matter what I see on the as far as the face that I'm looking at that I'm drawing from, I always make the top lip darker. That's just a rule of thumb that I use. It just always tends to make the drawing, if I'm doing it in black and white, it just makes the drawing work better for some reason to make the top lip darker, even if I see it differently. Um,
What's the largest piece that you completed, Danielle?
I think the largest one on wood was probably 18 by 24. Um, and that wasn't that one wasn't a finished piece of wood actually. Um, mainly because you know, they wanted it bigger, but you know, I didn't I only buy them already finished, already put together, because I don't do actual wood carving, or I don't know how to fix the wood, you know, to make it look finished or beveled on the sides and all of that. Um, so yeah, I just you know, but it was 18 by 24, and I actually got the wood from Lowe's. Um, putting that down, yeah. Yeah, I actually got the wood from Lowe's, so I just had them cut a piece that looked like it was pretty clean, you know, so that there wasn't a lot of you know, like a lot of hits in the wood or knots or you know, stuff that would detract from the image. And sometimes I kind of draw shapes on the face. Like what I'm doing now is I'm kind of mapping out the way that the shadows are in the face. So sometimes I'll just draw that as a shape and come back and so that I know how I'm going to shade it in. And it also helps me to define where the facial structure is as opposed to where the hair should be. Oh yeah, that one that was 18 by 24, that was one where they had a poem. It was my friend's cousin and his son, and there was a poem with it that they wanted me to put on there. So yeah, when words are added into this, that creates a whole new thing because now you've got to figure out fonts, font modes. And I don't like to freehand draw names or words because I tried cake decorating once and it was a disaster. So yeah, I usually go to the library, or if I have it on computer, um I like to play around with what font mode I want to use, and then print the words out to the size that I want them to be, and go from there and trace it on because it's not worth the drama. That's the tie, I think. All right, so we'll start figuring that out. I think that I'm far enough along now with kind of just getting a little outline on. Oops, sorry, gotta move it slow. Okay. I think I'm far enough along with laying in the outline to where I can start laying in some shadow now. So what I'm gonna do next, okay, hopefully that's still good for you. I'm gonna come in and try not to burn the house down. That's another thing. When you're working with these, let me just see if I can show you how I've got this set up. So you're going to see a little rat's nest of wires over here. So I apologize in advance, but I've kind of got everything set up. Okay, maybe it's not so easy to see, but I've got all of these things plugged into a couple of extension cords. These irons do not, these are the irons. They don't they don't require a lot of electricity. So it's not like, you're plugging in a lot of high powered things. So it's okay to use extension cords. But I also have this set up here. Oh, you can't see it. It's too dark under there. But it's a power strip, basically. One of those, where you can plug mini plugs in. But you just want to make sure you have it set up to where you're not going to be kicking the cords or crossing them up, because then otherwise these hot irons fall on the floor and start trying to burn into the floor or the carpet or whatever you have. So you want to make sure you have kind of a situation where they can be freestanding. And then these things actually come with their own little wire stands, which, oh, here we go. I can show you an example of one. So, nope, I'll set it there so you can see it. So it comes with its own wire stand. And so if you just have one, you can set them like that, somewhere where they're freestanding. But since I've got like 5 of them, because I wanted to plug in all of the different tips that I use, like this is the flat one. And this one allows me to just kind of start shading. So, I'm just kind of laying in where the hair is going to be. And then sometimes I have to make some kind of different artist decisions, like there was a time when I was drawing somebody and the hair was actually the darkest thing on the page, but in order to make the drawing work, I had to make a decision to tone the hair down some and make it not be the darkest thing on the page, so that the eyes could be the thing that draw you in. So sometimes, you got to just kind of feel out where you are, feel out what's working, and then make adjustments. But for now, I think I see the hair as being the darkest thing. And then what I'll do is come back and I'm kind of working between the black and white photo and the color at the same time, because what I like about making the copies first is that it helps me to just lock in the black and white part of it, you know, so that I don't start overthinking. Um and sometimes if I don't feel like I really captured the light person copy and go, okay, what did I miss?
That's enough, McCoy. You'll be in jail and he'll be out there doing drugs and killing people. Your choice.
This whole side needs. And I like this black one when I want a more smooth type of shading. Because there's another tip I'll show you shortly that gives me a much darker edge when I'm ready to come in and really start laying in the darker parts of things.
Danielle, your voice is fading out. Is your microphone, does it need to be adjusted?
Well, you know what? I think I'm wondering, I'll bring the phone closer to me because I think that's the part where I have the audio set up. Can you hear me better?
No. Can everyone hear? Because you're still sounding faded right now.
Yes, it faded away. It did that earlier and then it came back.
I wonder if there's a problem with the internet.
Oh, hey, you never know. Possibility.
Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Just not as strong. We can hear you.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. If I fade out, let me know because I can always come back to whatever I was talking about. I usually have learned to build the shadows up slowly, because otherwise I'll end up having to come back in with the sandpaper.
Danielle, have you ever incorporated your poetry into like the background of your portraits?
I have not. I have not. However, I possibly could. I've never really considered it before. Because one of the things that I've learned is with the poetry, like last year I did this program for Black's Museum, where every year we do a tribute to someone in Black history. So last year I did Octavia Butler. And so I did a poem in tribute to her, but I also did a portrait. And I found that trying to do both, that my brain does not really work on both at the same time. I'm either doing artwork and I'm fully immersed into that, or I'm writing, but I'm finding that the words don't really always show up for me when I'm doing artwork. So I had to, this was a project that I did over a couple of months, where I started with the portrait and then I came back with the poem.
Wow.
So I would imagine that if I ever do, I would probably have to plan that out in advance to to make both things kind of come together all at once. Okay, so we're starting to get these features blended in. I'll bring you back in a little bit so you can see where we are. So as you can see, this comes out really sepia tone.
Yep, but you can see it developing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Just like washes in a paint or, when you paint.
yeah. Uh-oh, I think I moved too fast. Okay. Okay,
Make
so
me
all right, we're
seasick
still
here.
all right. Now this is one of my favorite edges here. I'm gonna kind of wipe it off a little bit because I don't know if this is really able to show you the kind of grit and build up that'll be added. But then also because wood is a natural thing, it does, whenever you get certain kinds of grains in it, you are actually cutting through something that was once alive. So sometimes there's grease or I don't know if
Yeah, probably tree sap, huh?
yeah, it's a not as thick as that, but it can also build up on the steel.
Okay.
Um,
So
but now
like
this
pulp,
one,
it turns into like pulp, huh? Is
yeah,
that what
yeah,
it
you
is?
can actually hear it sizzle sometimes if you get
Right.
one with a lot of
Like a barbecue.
yeah. So I don't know if you can really see. Let me see if that helps. Ah, yeah, there
It's
we
kind
go.
of chiselly. There you go.
Yeah, it's beveled, so and then it's got like a tip on here. I don't know if you can really see it, but
Yeah.
this is the kind of line that this makes. I've used my practice piece. So if I want a really dark line, you can see how much
Oh,
darker
yeah,
that
that's
comes in.
wide.
And you can also kind of cut it like if you're doing calligraphy or something. You can, you know, go
Oh,
like
that's
this.
cool.
It just so you can see what kind of line that makes. And usually when I'm making a darker line, I go a little bit slower so that it gets time to burn into the wood in a particular way. Um,
When you first started, did you have to wear gloves for protection for your hands, or you just dug, dug right into it?
I just dug right into it. But you should also understand though, when I first started, I was still in my 20s and I was pretty stupid. So, um, I mean, even when I was in college, uh, I used to do oil painting with my bare hands and using, the turpentine or the paint wash that we would use back then to clean the brushes and everything.
Right.
Yeah, my instructor was like, you should not be using that to clean your hands off. You need to be using, he was really trying to tell me, but yeah, when you're young and you've never been sick, you don't know that what they're telling you is a big deal, right? And he's like, okay, well, you're an adult. I can't, I'm trying to tell you the right thing to do to save you from getting cancer or skin cancer or anything. And I'm like, but for this particular thing, it doesn't really need gloves or anything because you're not really uh, being exposed to chemicals or that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um,
I was just thinking if you're a beginner, and you're learning the process, that you might end up burning your fingertips or something, or your fingers.
well, like I
But
said, I was
you're a
pretty dumb.
professional, so
Well, I was pretty dumb and I had to try it. Because
ah,
sometimes I just want to know, is it hot? Like, I didn't
testing it out.
I,
Mhm.
I didn't know that I could just kind of get close to it and tell. No, I had to go all the way in and touch it. Is it hot? And how bad is that? Ah, it's hot. Yeah, I was pretty dumb. Um, so
Hey, well, we all learn through our mistakes.
yeah.
Okay, I'm sure everyone here probably has a story or two to tell. Part of life. And now look at you now. Mhm. You have matured,
Yeah,
and now you know better.
I
Uh,
was actually surprised to find that when I told people that I was just using the soldering iron that I got from Pat Catan's and whatnot, some people told me that they were like, "Oh, when we were in summer camp when we were kids, they used to, they taught us how to do that at camp." And I'm like, "What camp did you go to? Because what kind of insurance did they have? I don't think I would have wanted children playing with something hot. You know what I mean?"
mm. Sher has a question. She wants to know how expensive are the tools?
Well, when I first bought these, because I bought several sets of them, so that I could get more than one iron going, because they usually sell them with one iron and like two or three different tips. And back then they were somewhere between $15 and $20 for one set. Um, I've noticed that things have gone up quite a bit now, so I don't really know what they cost now. I would imagine somewhere in the ballpark of about $25 or so, because I bought so many of them back in the day that I don't really know what they cost now. But I'd imagine it could be probably somewhere between $25 and $30 for one set. Yeah, and then you'd have to, of course, if you want more than one tip, you can buy some of them that have the additional, attachments so that you can get, finer points and then, more broadside ones if you want. But this wood today, I went out and got this wood today, actually. This wood, actually, I was surprised at how much it was. It was $17 for this one 12 by 12 piece of wood. And I was surprised because back when I bought this other one that I have my cousins on, and you can see this is beveled on the sides and everything, this was about $15. And this one I think is it might be like 11, is it 11 by 14? I think it's like 11 by 14. Uh so for this one little piece of wood for it to be $17, I was like, what? But I had to remember, okay, they told me everything went up. Everything has gone up. So
Mm.
I need not be too surprised. Just, but I had bought so much wood and stuff in the past that for a long time, I just, whenever I would see it on sale, I would just get it. So I always usually had something ready to go.
Now, is that wood considered gessoed?
No, no, there's no finish on it at all.
None at all.
Um, yeah, it's just it's just flat wood.
Just flat wood. Okay. Now, do they? I thought I had saw at I don't know what art supply store that was. They do come in white board also, right?
Um,
White covered white the wood.
yeah, I think that there are some because I think that a lot of times people use the ones that are painted because they just
Right.
paint on them. Yeah, I think a lot of people just paint over them and make signs and do crafts and whatnot
Oh,
that
okay.
way. It
Hmm.
depends on what they want it for. I'm gonna come back to this one and start laying in a little bit more. I need this ear to be down more shade wise. We can start creating a little more contrast with the rest of the face. And the neck doesn't need to be as I could bring that down. I think originally I started drawing the tie-in a little bit too soon up here, so I'll come in and draw over it as much as I can, and maybe sand some of that line out of there.
Shar has a question. Do you have to treat the wood when finished with the portrait?
Yes. So it depends on what I want, what the finish that I want. So in the past I have taken some just the kind of shellac that you put over it, just a clear coat. But you can leave it raw just like this, because I mean it's wood, it's not really gonna, for the most part, I haven't seen it color at all over time. But that's what I wanted to show you this as well. This is Envirotex Pour On High Gloss Finish. So this, I know it's backwards on your screen, but they also sell this at the craft stores as well. I was hoping I still had a price tag on here because it's been so long since I bought it. I don't know how much they cost, but in the past, like maybe about 10 years ago, I bought the great big 32-ounce bottles of this. So these are just 8-ounce bottles, but they come together. So one of these is the this is the hardener, and this is the, I don't know what they call this other part, but you mix them evenly together and they put a really thick finish on it. But it takes the finish like 8 hours to dry, and you need a pretty clean area to do it. Because what I usually do is take just a plastic cup that I can throw away and make sure that you pour those evenly, into your container that you're going to mix it in. And I usually get like a popsicle stick or something, mix it all together. It'll bubble up sometimes or have little bubbles in the finish. But you pour it over the top once you're done, and it puts such a beautiful thick finish on it. But I have cats, right? So cat hair can sometimes be everywhere. So you want to have it in a place where you can lay it flat. And you have to kind of keep checking up on it, because that really thick stuff, you pour it on and then you have to kind of move it around and move it around until it's even. And then after you let it set for a little bit, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you could come in and blow on it and try to get the little bubbles out, or maybe take your little popsicle stick and kind of poke at the bubbles to get them off. But there's a whole process to that, because once it dries, see, it goes over the sides and everything. So it'll pool up on the bottom. So what I started doing was getting, they sell these, I think they're more like shelf liner kind of things, but they're really thick plastic. And I get my glue gun and I actually glue gun that thick plastic to the bottom and let it overhang. Kind of like if this is the thick plastic here, I'll glue gun it to the back, so it's hanging over like this, so that it'll catch the excess that goes over the sides. And then once it's done, like once it's dried and I like the finish and I didn't get hairs all in it and everything, then I just kind of cut it off with a mat knife. And some people kind of like that because they feel like it now has this final finish on the back. And then I take these, okay, where'd I put them? I put them somewhere so they'd be out of my way. Okay. I take these, I don't let me see if I can get it to where you can see it. These little things that you use to hang a picture. And they come with these little bitty nails, and I'll just put it on the back for them, so that they can hang it. And so that's what's worked for me. But it's a whole process using these two. But you can, if you just want some kind of finish on it, you can get like a little can of clear poly, whatever they call that, you know, the clear stuff you get from the hardware, and you can take the little foam brush. Yeah, that. And you can take a clear, I mean, like the little foam brush and brush it over and let it, you know, dry for a couple hours. If you just want to put a finish on it. There have been times that I've also put, that I've also stained the wood after I finished it. So if I wanted, you know, if I wanted the wood to not be this, the lighter looking wood, I can, you know, take whatever stain I want and add it over there and wipe it down. But I don't tend to use the stain too much because it can kind of take away from the drawing. Especially if it's a darker stain, it may not really work with the drawing. So I've stayed away from those. But I would imagine you could use different color stains after you do the drawing, maybe in the background or around, and just create something else with different color stains. I suppose that could be on the table, but I've never done it. But it could be kind of interesting though, like if you use like a
Yeah,
red
sounds
or cherry.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds pretty cool. Different.
Or even like in this photo that I used of him, the way I got the photograph was I was watching an interview with James Baldwin and Maya Angelou. So I just took my cell phone and just took shots. So that's the photograph I'm working from. And as I was just talking about using the stains, I'm kind of like, I wonder, you know, I've never played with using stains or even paint if I wanted to kind of watercolor in some color on the shirt or maybe even the background and just leave the face on the clear, I mean clear wood, but you know, the lighter color wood. That could
Yeah.
even be something fun to try, you know.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
but stains can get tricky.
So normally, how long does it take for you to complete a portrait, or does that depend on how many, probably how many people, or how detailed it is?
Yeah, normally if it's one face, it can be about 5 hours if I'm working, you know, straight through, or even if I stop a couple times, it still might be, you know, a total of about 5 hours to actually finish the drawing part of it. Um, if there's more than one face, that can get tricky. You know, it depends. That can depend. I think I want to make most of this darker up here. I just thought that James Baldwin, he always had so many expressions. Like his face never, it doesn't let you down if you're an artist, you know. Like he has so many expressions. Uh, and I don't know about you guys as artists or not, but I tend to find that as an artist, I like faces that have more character lines and that kind of thing. I think that those are a lot more fun to draw than smooth faced people. Um, nothing against people that have, you know, nice smooth faces and, you know, and beautiful skin and all of that, you know, but I kind of like the character marks, you know. I think that they tell me more about a person and what they may have been through. Okay, I think I actually need this to be bigger. I think this is darker up here. It almost makes me want to actually do a portrait of him like in chalk or in color, because what I'm looking at, I'm seeing a lot of purples. Um, and I don't know, but I look at a lot of people's faces and I think about the colors that it would take for me to get up to their skin tone, and what I'm seeing in this face here is a lot of purple and fuchsias, you know, and I think I might come back and actually end up doing a charcoal drawing of him, maybe with a different, expression or whatnot. But
So when you use the sandpaper, it works pretty well because the burning doesn't go very deep into the wood.
yeah, so the less deep I go, the easier it is. Like so for this one line here, let me see, where's that? There we go. I'll get the heavier grit one here. Yeah, I've had to learn the hard way not to go not to overcommit on this too early. Um but yeah, because there have been some times when I have let me see here if you can, I'll bring it around so that you can see the line first. Well, I guess you can't really see it too tough. Let me see if I can hold that there for a second and see if I can still do this. All right, there we go. But yeah, there's a kind of a dark line right here that I put in when I started drawing the tie and the shirt in a little bit too soon.
Oh, there you go. That works really good. It's like an eraser.
Oh yeah. Yep. And
Oh, very
usually
cool.
usually what I do is before I finish the whole thing, and before I shellac it, if I decide to put that thick shellac on there, I usually get like a paper towel. I really like these Vivas because they're almost like a shop towel, like the kind that you could get from the AutoZone where the mechanics use to get the oil off.
Yeah.
Because this thing, when I'm oil painting and I need to just wipe the brush off, oh, it just absorbs it. It's wonderful. But I'll usually wet this up just a little bit and then go over it and wipe all the erasure marks and the, extra sawdust. I don't know if you can see that the sawdust has stained that a little bit. But yeah, I'll go in and do that first so that there's not all of that stuff trapped underneath the shellac, because whatever's under there is gonna be under there. If you got a cat hair
Forever.
that blew in there, it's in there.
Forever. You can make whiskers on a guy or something, or hair on his head.
Yeah, there's
So,
been times that I've had to sand the shellac off because there was a flaw in the finish. Um, like sometimes cat hairs will get in there and they're in there when they're in there. So, sometimes I can go over this with the heavier grit sandpaper and then you can actually wash it off after that. You can put it under some water and then just do it again, do the
wow.
shellac part again. I'm gonna try to start getting this eye together, because now the eye doesn't look right to me. So I'm to me, drawing is a process of just constantly building up and tearing down. And I don't know about you all, but sometimes I find it to be stressful. Just, I'll get something rendered so good, and then I'll stand back from it and realize that, I got it rendered so good that the rest of the picture doesn't look right anymore. The troubles. And sometimes I find it absolutely stressful. It's starting to come through.
And Danielle, we have about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
That's coming along great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's it's kind of good. It feels kind of good to get back. And then there's also on these soldering irons here, there's a little, let me see if I can try to get it into the right light for you. There's a little screw that holds this in right there. And sometimes the screw sticks out. And if you're not careful, where's that other piece? If you're not careful, you can end up drawing with the screw as opposed to with, yeah. So I don't know if you can see this line coming through there. That's the screw part that's sticking out. And
Wow.
so I have to
Oops.
be kind of careful sometimes, and sometimes these things they screw into the soldering iron part. So sometimes they start to get loose. So what I have to do sometimes is unplug it, let it cool down so I can screw it in tighter. So there's a little bit of a process to it sometimes that you just have to be aware of. Like right now, this whole thing is moving on me. So I'm trying to find the place where it will allow me to live and and keep doing what I need to do to make it right here. Draw that eyebrow back in there because all of this is shadow here, actually.
I can see why you have multiple irons, because to wait till that cools down and put a new tip in, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, that was more than my patience could handle.
I can't imagine.
He's got kind of an interesting hairline here. So sometimes I, just kind of come in and try to catch the texture of the hair a little bit, Even if I come in later and go back over it and make it darker or whatnot. Oh, it comes, okay. So where the eyebrow lines are there, okay, I got you. I talk to myself while I'm drawing.
You're in good company.
Yeah,
Think a lot of
right. I
us
was about to
do.
say, I'm sure nobody talks to themselves in this
Right.
room, right? You
Talk to
can
the
tell us.
brush.
We'll keep it a secret, everyone.
Is the iron heavy or is it kind of light? Does it feel like a big, thick pencil?
Oh, it's not heavy at all. It's actually pretty light. Yeah, or it's either pretty light or I've gotten used to it. I don't I don't know which one is more true, but it doesn't feel heavy at all.
So I would think if it was heavier, your hand would get tired.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's actually pretty light. And I usually try to keep a light touch with it. Um, so that I'm making sure to move to glide across uh and not let it rest too long, because the longer I let it rest in a spot, the deeper the burn will be.
Mhm.
And I've been working on developing patience, so that I'm not going too far in any direction uh too soon. It does require like coming back and going back over it and coming back and going back over it and then build it up a little more. Yeah, it is pretty textural. It is pretty textural.
Wow. So what's your favorite piece of artwork you've created? Whether it be wood burning or your pastels or
Well, that's a great question. I think one of the favorites, because it depends on the day. So it depends on what I'm in, what I'm looking at, what I'm enjoying, or some of the things that I've learned to see differently over the years. So there's a painting that I did of George Clinton. And I did it back when I was 16. Uh, and George Clinton actually signed it. Um, yeah, he actually signed it. I didn't get to meet him when it happened, but my mom knew someone who was doing the sound for one of the shows that Parliament Funkadelics was doing. Because they have to use union people whenever they travel from city to city.
right.
So um, my mom's friend actually got it signed, but then he lost the painting right after that. Uh, and it was
Oh,
hanging out at the Agora for like 5 years before we tracked it back down. So, um, so yeah, but it was pretty cool to get it back and to see that it was signed, the whole band signed the back. And so that's one of my favorites. It's an oil painting um on canvas, actually on canvas board, because I was broke. And so what I've had to do to kind of preserve it over the years, because it's on a canvas board, uh the board started to bow, so it started to bend in. So I actually got a frame for it, and was able to fit it into the frame. I couldn't use I couldn't put a mat in it because I mean, yeah, it just, so I didn't use a mat or anything, but I just put it in the frame itself, and it fits in there pretty nicely, and it also keeps the board from continuing to bow. So that's one of my favorites. But also there's a drawing that doesn't exist anymore because it got destroyed over the years. But there was a chalk drawing that I did of Martin Luther King also, and it was one of his angrier looking poses. And I just liked it because he wasn't looking peaceful. I liked it that he was looking a little angry. Uh, but that was one of my favorites also. But then also there were a couple of oil paintings that a couple years ago when I started to get back into doing oil paintings, I was just experimenting with colors and just letting the colors tell me where they wanted to go. So I was using oil paint sticks um, on canvas and just playing around with, letting it go where it wanted to go, letting it dictate to me what it wanted to do. And I that was a real departure for me because I've always worked pretty much realistically when I would draw or paint. So it was a departure for me to try something abstract. But yeah, and it's interesting when people see those, they see different things in it. So it's always an interesting conversation piece to let people come up and see what they think they see or what they, like about a certain thing. Or sometimes they even tell me some things that they picked out of some of those paintings, and it relates to the music that I was actually listening to at the time that I was drawing it. So I'm like, oh wow, you actually picked out, I was listening to 1940s jazz, singers on the day that I did this one painting. And somebody said something along the lines that what it reminded them of was something from that era. And I'm like, okay, I can, that's pretty good. You picking up stuff.
Do you have do you have a final tip for us before we close out, for us if we were interested in getting into wood burning?
Well, I would just say make sure that you have, like what I need, part of what my setup here, um, I'm using this old pen here as a something to rest the painting on so I can have it sit up a little bit. Um, because I prefer to have it angled. Um, well, the only thing I would say is just make sure you have some sandpaper on file. Um, I prefer using multiple irons at once, but you can, if you don't want to buy multiple irons, you can just do one at a time or two at a time and just keep unplugging them if you have the patience for that. Um, but yeah, this is where we are so far with it. I'll
Um,
put in a few more details on the clothes and dig out a few more details around the face to solidify some of the lines.
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps you can send us the completed project, the completed artwork when you have a chance.
I sure
Because
can.
yes,
That would
we
be
would
so
like to
cool to
thank
see.
you. Thank you
Oh,
for coming.
Yes,
you're
thank
very
you,
welcome.
Danielle. You've been a joy to watch.
Yes, excellent demonstration and a nice discussion about the process and the tools that you incorporate into your actual art.
Well, thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thanks for having me. This has been fun. And it seems like you have a pretty cool group here where everybody's, got their things going on. And sometimes I think prior to COVID, I didn't really realize how much we actually need the artist community and to be able to bounce ideas off each other and, to talk about things. Because when I listen to other artists, I get other ideas like, oh, I had never considered doing that,
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, this is pretty
You've got
cool.
so many different ideas, and it sometimes gels with what you have and takes you in a new direction you would never have thought of.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah. Like I never
right.
thought of, like I could actually, I know that James Baldwin was also a poet. I could probably put faintly in the background words from or excerpts from something he's written,
Right.
and
Yes.
it could
Yeah,
work,
that would be nice. That would be nice. Well, thank you again for coming. And if anyone has any questions about Danielle's work, feel free to contact myself or Joan.